Wow, do we have a big one in boxing this weekend. We mentioned it. It goes down Saturday night, triple header, Showtime, 9 p.m. Eastern. From the world's most famous ring that creates giant action brawls. Some call it the Punch Bowl. Some call it the War Grounds, the Den of Sin. You can call it Dignity Health Sports Park if you want. To me, it's the damn StubHub Center, but who cares where they're fighting? Oh, in this case, you should, because when Jermell, Charlo, and Brian Castano meet for a second time Saturday night, there's a lot of things telling us we could be in for great theater from the variety of action, not just their styles, not just how good the first fight was last July in San Antonio when we had a very disputed split draw and a fight that it kind of felt like Castano had done enough. But, Luke, we have one Jermell Charlo who brings 3 of the 154-pound world titles into this undisputed matchup against Castano, who's got the 4th, of course. Luke, he says this week, I'm going to knock this motherfucker out, more or less. You're not going to see that. Luke, the last time that Charlo felt he got wronged or what have you, I get that this is different because when he lost to Tony Harrison in 2018, he felt he got robbed. This time, some people felt Castano got robbed, but here's Charlo. You know what he did to right that wrong? He knocked Harrison the hell out in their rematch 1 year later. Is that getting you pretty excited to hear that if we see an offensive-minded Jermell Charlo, meaning not just a counterpuncher, that, we not only could see this thing blow up, but Castano better watch out.
I think it's possible. I rewatched this fight, BC, in anticipation for today and to talk about this with you, and then I watched what some other folks had to say about it. So I really tried to think about this fight and what could be different the next time. And I keep coming back to one central thought on this. There's no doubt in my mind that the more well-rounded, skillful boxer of the two is Charlo. I just don't know how you could look at the tape and say that Castano's got more skill. Individual particular tactics that he used were quite effective. That gave Charlo some trouble. But again, the well-rounded boxing ability edge would go to Charlo. And we've talked about the fact that he has more room to improve. But dude, the one thing that keeps me making that I know this fight is going to be close is when it's time for Castano to work, there's not a doubt in my mind he puts on the helmet, grabs his lunch pail, and clocks in for his shift. Charlo takes time off in a fight. Does he not? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it's the most consequential that he hasn't come back from it, Tony Harrison in the rematch or whatever, but dude, he takes rounds off. Sometimes he takes rounds off, but he takes big moments of rounds off, or long stretches anyway. I don't know if I really believe that Charlo can win. Not because he's not better, BC. I do think he's better. But he has to have a sufficient work rate in both his footwork, staying off the rope line, which he did not do a lot of times, and that's where Castano did very much his best work. And I really wonder when he gets tired through round 6 or 7, is he still going to be moving on his feet enough to bring all of his many talents to life? If he does, no doubt in my mind that he wins. But I don't know if he does, BC, so that really makes it strange for me.
Well, look, there's no shortage of motivation here for Charlo. Like I said, he had that hiccup in the past against Tony Harrison, but let's also ask ourselves, why did he have that hiccup against Harrison? Harrison's a very good boxer, even though he can punch too, and he's a very good counter boxer, and Harrison kind of took away Jermell's jab in their first fight, lowered his output completely, and just pot-shotted him. The problem was we didn't see Charlo in that fight step on the gas. Now, even to be fair, Luke, in the rematch, we didn't see Charlo step on that gas until late. I thought Harrison was outboxing him for a while, and then, Charlo lands the big one in round 11 to finish him. You're so right on work rate. If his jab isn't a factor offensively, not defensively, he can't win this fight. Because, Castano, I think, overachieved by how easy he was able to get inside, but also let's give Castano a ton of credit. For a straight-ahead, aggressive, almost brawler, his defense is so on point. Head movement, high guard, the swivel. He just does not get lit up cleanly with big shots. So, Luke, he was able to get inside, as you mentioned, rounds 2 and 3. He pins Charlo on the ropes. He lands big left hooks. I can't see that same Charlo again who's trying to do this Canelo thing from the outside and land that one perfect punch to end the fight. Because we've already seen it now in 2 Harrison fights and this first Castano one that it's not going to be enough for every judge. Now, Charlo did come on at the end of this first Castano fight, and in the last 4 rounds really stepped up his pace and kind of went after Castano. And there is, a subset of people going, look, those last 3-4 rounds of that first fight could could be Jermell finally having figured him out. But either way, Luke, he figured him out too late. We cannot see him giving away rounds early. And to me, he loves when he's with a guy who he perceives. When Charlo perceives his opponent is not as quick or technical as him, I think he falls into this almost like, oh shit, I'm gonna end him with one perfect one. So it's like, Luke, when you're playing video games against somebody you're a lot better than, you're just screwing around trying to do half-court alley-oops and stuff. And I think he maybe came in with that mindset and then got surprised, figured Castano out late, made it close, but not enough. Dude, he's got to come out, most importantly, with that jab as a weapon, because you need to stop Castano from getting inside. That's where he is very hard to keep down, because he's more technical than he looks, his defense is better than he looks, and he has a friggin' motor. But even though he's a classed up brawler in some ways, and I hate even using that term because, I don't mean brawler as like caveman, but even though he's a classed up caveman, Luke, if this fight gets technical, man, he's not on that level. So you need to keep him away from the areas in which he can be technically raw, and that's on the inside. Castano cannot have this same success if he's on the outside. So, Luke, when I hear Charlo coming in saying, oh, fuck it, I'm going to knock this guy out, I'm going to show y'all, he has no shortage of motivation. He got a mulligan to get this rematch in many ways, and he has a chance to be the undisputed champion. If he loses, he's got nothing. So I think we're going to see a guy who comes in, and he's going to have to take more chances. And, Luke, I did interview Derek James, his trainer, couple months ago, that it's still available, youtube.com/morningkombat. And I brought up, look, we're always complaining that he's not throwing enough punches. And, I feel like Charlo can't figure out, am I better as a boxer or am I better as a puncher? And sometimes that's great, but sometimes it looks like Charlo's miscast. He doesn't know what he should be. Now, James says, look, this is what makes him great. You never know what's coming. What do you want him to go in there and just take punishment all the time? No, we're not asking him that all the time. But this is an undisputed championship bout. I think if Jermell comes in with that intention that says, look, I may have to it may get dirty in the first 3, 4, 5 rounds. But as long as I establish this foundation, that if he's going to get over that line, my jab and, of course, my right hand, which he can do in the upper guard, he can do in a variety of ways to get people out of there. Luke, Charlo wants that big combustible moment, and he likes to wait for it to come to him. He can create that moment, is really what I'm saying, off of his jab. And I think, although Castano, you have to respect him, I think he's going to find out. Castano is a bit more limited when he fights at mid or long range than when he is up in your grill. If Charlo can create that space between, yeah, dude, I think he will end up knocking Brian Castano out.
I'm going to say two things. I agree with your jab take, but I really believe we should add something to it. Imagine this. Imagine that very different fighters, very different fight styles, but imagine that Charlo had Erislandy Lara's evasive footwork, which means that Brian Castano never really got a clear opportunity to batter Charlo along the ropes. Does Castano have a real chance to win that fight in your estimation? Do you think? If
Charlo, and this is in play for his skill set if he wanted to, if he came in with a game plan that was 100% focused on circling away, jabbing to the body and stepping back, could he win that way? I don't know, Luke, because he switches so often in his style and then often just sets up and shop as a counterpuncher. I tend to have the same questions you do if he has the 12-round stamina to pull that off,
right,
or if he doesn't deviate the script, because there's situations where he should deviate that script and be that power puncher. So I think it's still a gamble if he went with that strategy.
Okay, but here's the point I want to make. It's a gamble in that sense. However, if you're denying Castano opportunity against the ropes, it's very, very, very difficult for Castano to win. If he doesn't have those pronounced moments along the ropes, he can't really outbox Charlo. It's just not really possible, and he can't really even do his biggest power punching. It only comes when the ropes assist Castano in restricting the movement and then limiting what kind of offensive and defensive choices Charlo has. Plain as day. So I'm going to say that I agree with your jab take. I really want to emphasize the footwork take from Charlo. It's not like he always has to be on the back foot. But if he is going to be on the back foot, he needs to be really on the move with it. And the last thing I'm going to say, BC, is, and we should really talk about this a little bit more, it's not like Charlo didn't go to the body in the first fight, But Castano's defense, while sturdy and surprisingly good, it is still a function of a high guard, leaving a lot of rib exposed and liver and organs exposed. And I'm going to say this, dude, like Charlo did not take enough advantage of that in the first fight. It wasn't like he ignored it. It wasn't like it wasn't a part of it. He went to it. But I think you really got to hammer Castano with that. I think a lot of stuff bounced off of the gloves of Castano that didn't count, that didn't hurt, that didn't mark him up. And I think a little bit more investment in the body work. So, you have to go with the jab, high, low, all that kind of stuff. You have to mix it up. And I do believe you have to press Castano backwards. But the real key for me there is a renewed emphasis on body work. I think if Charlo can be on his footwork, be on his body work, be on his jab, Castano has no avenue to victory whatsoever.
In sort of reputation, Jermell's not overly known as a body puncher. And to your point on the stats from the first fight, he only landed 17 body punches. Castano landed 19, so it really wasn't a factor because it was in such close, and they're both kind of headhunters. But Charlo did knock out Jason Rosario with that perfectly placed body shot, and he seemed to be targeting it. If that can become something where even if Castano breaks that distance and gets in close, if we can see Charlo add the wrinkle of stepping to the side and hooking to the body, or just some of the things that he doesn't typically do, that certainly could be something to watch out for. But when we're looking at the punch stats from the first fight, they do tell kind of what our eyes saw. Castano outlanded Charlo 173 to 151, according to CompuBox, which is close, but it's showing you what you need to see. Charlo did land 53 jabs, just 9 landed for Castano, but Charlo wasn't consistent with the jab, and he certainly didn't land for a good percentage at all. Overall, though, Castano connected on 41% of his power shots. So if you give him that opportunity where, in this fight, he barely landed any jabs. 85% of Castano's output were power punches, and he's going to connect on 41 of those. That shows you he's on the inside most of the night, and he's having success. Charlo's got to create that, even if it takes biting down. And by the way, Luke, I think that Charlo is such an explosive puncher in the right moment that even in the battle of trying to draw that line between them in terms of space, he still might catch Castano. I'm saying that if we have an intentional offensive Charlo here, a knockout can happen at any point. But the thing that you have to ask yourself, if you don't believe in that version of Charlo, or you don't believe that version's coming, is what if he doesn't get Castano out of there? Can Castano's constant pressure in the second half of this fight wear on the gas tank of Charlo if he tries to be as offensive as I'm saying he is? Luke, these are just other wrinkles you have to watch out for in this fight that really have me fired up. I mean, this fight is as good as a pay-per-view fight. You can argue whether it would have done big business or not, but it's, in theory, it's a rematch of a disputed fight of the year contender for the undisputed championship. It's basically a pay-per-view fight. I love that it's on regular Showtime this weekend. And I can't tell our MMA fans enough that this is one of those fights you'll be entertained by. The passion, the talent of both, what's at stake. This is going to be a good one.
It's a full on, as BC says, not just a unification. It's for all the marbles in the 4-belt era. Correct me if I'm wrong, BC. Whoever wins this will be the first fully unified, undisputed champion in this junior middleweight, whatever you want to call this weight class, since Winky Wright. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, Winky Wright did it in the 3-belt era, but yes, since Winky Wright had all the belts at 154, this is the first time we're going to get a 4-belt champion. And I want people to realize that even 3 years ago, right after Terrence Crawford became the undisputed champion at 140, then Usyk did it at cruiserweight, and we were like, oh my God, this never happens. It's been happening a lot since then. At least, you have to realize as a fan, if you're new to boxing, we don't get undisputed 4-belt title fights, every day. In fact, typically we never do. This run the last year and a half, 2 years, 3 years has been great.
So I'm excited about it. I just really can't wait to see what adjustments. And Derek James is one hell of a trainer. You saw what he had Errol Spence doing. So we'll see. They know what to do. That's the thing, right, BC? Jermell Charlo and Derek James, they know what to do. The question is, will Charlo be actually able to do it? We're going to find out tomorrow.